know that people have also been sort of bugging you to do YouTube videos and how-to videos, and you kind of have been reticent to do those, and I can really understand why.
With detailed tailoring work and detailed lace making work, all the cameras really want to focus on is what your hands are doing. So all you get is just this tiny little image of hands doing something, which is fine. You can learn the motion of the hands, but the whole body is the tool. So if you're not sitting properly, what your hands are doing is irrelevant to the damage that you might be causing to your back or hips or shoulders. Like everything in a skilled trade is about keeping the body as efficient as possible so that you can do it faster. Most how-to videos only show things at how to learn at speed. You never get to see anybody working at full speed and at half speed to understand what you're really aiming for in terms of turning your body into a craft making machine.
Right.
And that's really how I conceptualize it and how I train people when I teach them, this is how your body should be, this is where your mind should be, this is the angle at which you hold your head, the motion with which you draw this, and it's so detailed and so specific, and people think it's oftentimes a little bit too much. But if you've ever worked in a professional version of these trades rather than a costume hobby version of these trades, you really understand the level of incredible mastery one has to be able to do these things ridiculously fast. When you're also getting paid by the garment, or by the object and not by the hour, which most of these third world countries are getting paid by the piece when they're doing these things. So if you watch an American person sitting at an embroidery frame doing a bunch of beautiful silk or metalwork embroidery, you're going to see the slow, leisurely, hobbyist pace.
Right.
You watch somebody in Pakistan embroidering something for somebody's wedding, and they're going at light speed because they're an absolute professional and they don't get paid until that thing is done.
Right.
Just understanding the nature of being a true professional with these skills and these trades, that's what I try to bring to the way that I teach. I definitely push people to stop thinking of it as a hobby.
But you do teach master classes that people can come to, and you teach them across the country.
Well, there's two different types of classes. I have workshop weekends, which tend to be geared more toward beginners. Someone can come into one of my workshop weekends and know nothing about the things that they're about to learn, save hopefully for a little bit of terminology, but even that is covered in the way that I teach. So in 3 days, somebody can learn about the pattern making of one of these garments, but they'll actually physically have constructed half of a garment with their own hands without the aid of the machine. So they'll know how to do it, and I've timed the classes so that even the most ranked beginner can reach the finish post. Now the master class is a little bit of a different concept. It's that idea, but it's blown up into a full week-long session. It is more expensive, it is a lot more time investment, and the expectation is that you don't come to one of those classes without the basic set of skills. So if you've taken my workshop weekend, then it's a foregone conclusion you'll be prepared to take the master class, more or less. The master class goes into a lot more detail of pushing you like a professional. I'm a lot more strict about no talking. It's very much like a work environment, and I do it that way specifically because I need people to put themselves in the right headspace, and the only way that you can do that is if you don't talk.
Right.
Professional shops, there is no talking. At least professional tailor shops. A university theater costume shop is more likely to be a little bit chattier because you're dealing with students. Yeah. And then they're not yet in the professional realm. If you go to a professional costume house, like I've worked in one here, there's no talking.
No,
there might be quiet music in the background, but even that is distracting. I think until you've been forced to work at a super professional level with these skills, you don't know how much the tiniest bit of music or verbiage in the background can completely destroy your flow. You're literally turning your body into a machine. If you're hearing music or hearing words, you're staying human. But you have to almost become a little bit inhuman in order to do these things at this speed.
I would love all my students to be in a room with you for like 10 minutes.
They'd never survive.
It would be absolutely amazing. Because they just, I mean, I I have to get on them because they come into class, or not class, but into the costume shop, and they have their phones next to them. And they will do stitch, stitch, text, stitch, stitch, Instagram, stitch, stitch, Facebook, and I'm losing my mind.
I taught fashion at Parsons University of Fashion Design for about 5 years, and that was a huge problem, is the telephones. All of these trades that I teach grew and came about in times when there were none of those things. So the only way to do them properly is to put them in that context and isolate your body and your mind from all of the static of the outside world. When I was teaching, these students they're working on their senior thesis projects. They have a very limited time frame, and they would go home and they would say, oh, I'm going to make this thing tonight, and they would come back and it would look terrible in several places and really great in another place. And I said, I can see right here you had the TV on the entire time when you were doing this section, and you had relative quiet when you were doing this section. First, they were incredulous that I could actually see that, because they don't have the professional acuity yet to notice when it's mediocre and when it's excellent. Talking to them about that and really browbeating them hard about understanding the level of digital addiction that they're suffering at that time in their lives. They don't get it. They don't get that it's an addiction until you tell them the whole host of physical and psychological things that they suffer when they are out of reach of their phone. And it's surprising when they wake up to it how much their work changes.
So if you like this video, subscribe and give us comments below on what we can do better or suggestions for a future costume talk. See you next time!